Well, we've got a big show ahead, so let's get straight into it with my panel. Joining me is Victorian Liberal leader Michael Kroger and One Nation Chief of Staff James Ashby. Gentlemen, thanks for joining me tonight. Let's start with the federal government's budget update to be officially released on Wednesday. It'll show a massive drop in mining exports, about $100 billion, at the same time as higher government spending, all of which will push Labor's budget further into the red over the next 4 years. Now, here's what Treasurer Jim Chalmers had to say in response to excellent questions from my Sky News colleague, Andrew Clennell.
You had deficits predicted in your budget of $28.3 billion, growing to $42.8 billion in 25-26, which would be about the sixth largest on record, then 26.7, then $24 billion. Is the totality of those deficits that you're going to forecast on Wednesday bigger than the totality of those four forecast in the budget?
Oh, you have to wait and see the numbers on Wednesday, Andrew. We've been upfront and said that because of some of these pressures, well, you have to see on Wednesday. You'll see all the numbers on Wednesday. There hasn't been slippage in every year. We've been able to do a little bit better in the near term, but there's been some slippage for reasons that we've been upfront about. But the overall story since we came to office, two surpluses, a huge turnaround in the budget situation that we inherited, much less debt, much less interest on the debt, will show that we've made really very, very substantial progress since we came to office.
Michael Kroger, substantial progress. I'm not sure many people would agree with that assessment.
Well, it depends how you define substantial progress, James. Look, he's had two surpluses which have nothing to do with him, right? He's not in charge of the budget, right? The budget's in charge of him. He's punch drunk. He's a cork in the ocean, this poor bloke. He's just a commentator, right, telling us, you know, what's happening out there. He's got no control over anything. What we know is this. In the last budget, that he said the next 4 years, the next four budgets will be $121 billion worth of deficits. Deloitte's put out a report the other week saying it won't be 121, it'll be 149 billion. Now, we don't need to wait till Wednesday. I can tell you now, it's more than the 121 that he predicted. This bloke cannot control his spending. He is too weak to be Treasurer of this country. That fellow Pallas, who's doing us all a favour by leaving, he ought to get a third rocking chair.
For Jim Chalmers.
Well, mate, seriously, I mean, Chalmers has completely lost control of the budget. We're going to have deficits over the next 4 years, probably more than $150 billion, right? It's why I don't think Albo can wait for the budget to be brought down before he calls an election. He's got to have an election before he has a budget. The punters out there think that there's something about Chalmers. He's had two surpluses, so that's good. When they say, yeah, but by the way, the next four are over $150 billion, it'll be like, oh, I thought this bloke was good. No, he was just very lucky. So that's why I think Albo will go before the budget, because they've totally lost control of everything out there.
Well, James Ashby, when you've got a $100 billion hole in the budget because our exports to China are going to be down, you cut spending, don't you?
Well, that's normally the trend, and it's something that this Labor government don't know how to do very well at all, and that is pull the reins in. Households have got to do it right across the country. I think it's going to be a leaner Christmas for most households out there. But this is a government that think that by giving out or doling out all this money, more borrowed money, I might just say, they will win the votes. And they may very well do that. That is what Labor do best. They scare people into thinking that the coalition will pull or retract the money from the economy so greatly that it will have detrimental impacts on people's hip pockets. We know that people are struggling already, so that fear itself doesn't take much to permeate the minds of those people already doing it tough. Look, if they're going to use any levers as a government between now and the election, I don't think they're leaving themselves much time. But to soften the landing here, they've got to make doing business in this country a whole lot easier, and they're doing nothing about that. In fact, they're only making it tougher for businesses. And as a result of that, we are seeing businesses crumble at a rapid rate of knots, and that's not making life any better either.
Indeed. Well, before we move on from Jim Chalmers, he's announced his appointments to the RBA's new interest rate setting board. We've got RBA Governor Michelle Bullock. We've got an RBA Deputy Governor, the Treasury Secretary, an economist, a university professor, a former bank boss, and a couple of company directors. But here's what the Treasurer said today.
So these are high quality, high calibre people, and together they present They represent the best mix of relevant skills and abilities and experience. I'm very proud to say that women will make up the majority of both boards, and this continues the very substantial progress that we've made when it comes to appointments in the Treasury portfolio.
Michael Kroger, I'm sure they're all very qualified, but why does the Treasurer make it about gender? Does anybody really care?
Yeah, they do care. They want people appointed on the basis of their ability. Now, look, they probably have been appointed on the basis of ability and they look very well qualified, as you said. But why does Chalmers want to say, oh, we've got a majority of women, i.e. maybe they're not the best qualified, but they're women, that's why we've appointed them? I mean, no one wants to be known to be a diversity hire. Someone's got to give this guy the memo. We're past peak woke now. People are tired of this nonsense, right? If you're going in for neurosurgery, do you want to be told that the neurosurgeon is not the top person in the field, only got into the course as a diversity person and is not really, the top neurosurgeon, but is trying their best? Well, no one wants to be told I'm on the Reserve Bank board possibly because I'm a woman. It's insulting to those women who've got excellent, outstanding careers. It's just insulting. And as I said, someone should tell this bloke, we're over all this nonsense. We want people to the Reserve Bank board and these senior positions appointed on the basis of their ability.
And it's insulting to people who are struggling with their mortgages as well. I mean, as if we care about the sex of the people on the interest rate board. We just want interest rates to come down, sort out the economy. Going back to Victoria for a moment, James Ashby, as if Victorians haven't suffered enough, Premier Jacinta Allan is planning to force households off gas. But here's a surprise. It looks like an absolute vote killer. Who knew? A new poll by Redbridge has found people are less likely to vote for the Labor government because of the no gas policy. And that's Labor voters too. 30% of Labor supporters said they would be less likely to vote for the government due to its gas phase-out plans. That's a big hit for Jacinta Allan, James.
Oh, you bet. And I suspect that this polling has prompted other polling. Just before coming to where I took a poll from UComs on this exact same issue on energy transition. So there is more and more polling. I think as we get closer to another federal election, these sorts of polls are going to take precedence. The issue is Victoria is a different state to the ACT, who made this announcement they were going to transition all those houses over to electricity all those years ago. The ACT earns a lot more money. There's a lot more wealth in that territory. But Victoria, and the polls were done in some of those marginal seats, it says a completely different story here. People want choice. They're happy with their gas. They don't want the cost of having to refit their entire kitchen out. And if you're a migrant who loves to cook with gas, especially the Asian community, I don't think electricity, I know myself, an induction cooktop's never going to cut it versus that of a hot wok on gas, that's for sure.
I'll tell you the other thing that was interesting about this poll, Michael, is that only 30% of Greens voters said they would be prepared to cop the cost themselves to move from... Why are you laughing, Michael? You thought Greens were committed to it.
They're committed, aren't they?
I always thought so.
10 out of 10.
70% of them apparently said we're not paying out of our own pocket.
And 90% of the public said we're not paying for this. I mean,
that's correct.
There's another memo that needs to go to Jacinta Allan. Jacinta, there's a cost of living crisis. People are not so worried about whether it's gas, or not. What they can't afford is to put food on the table. They can't afford to put food in the wok. But listen, here's the bigger point about what Allan's doing. I think there's now an extreme likelihood that Jacinta Allan will be dumped as Labor leader before the next state election. I can't see Labor
big call.
Sticking with her. Big call. I haven't got one wrong yet. For a long, long time, I would think Jacinta, in fact, I can't think of the last one I got wrong. Jacinta Allan won't lead the Labor Party to the 26th election. She's too tainted by Daniel Andrews. She's too yesterday's person. The baggage of that hopeless Tim Pallas and the whole Andrews era is wrapped around her. She doesn't look like the future. She looks like a relic from the train wreck from the past. She can't survive as leader. She's going to lose, and they're going to dump her and put in the deputy Ben Carroll. That would be my guess. He doesn't have the numbers because he's in the minority, but sooner or later, our good friend Stephen Conroy and the other people that can manipulate these things, they'll dump her. They'll put in Carroll. Carroll's got all those sort of Chris Minns He looks to me like a Chris Minns, moderate, sensible, younger, newer, fresher. And if you notice, Minns had an argument. He said something critical of Daniel Andrews the other week, just to distance himself from Andrews.
Yep.
So it's like, I'm not him. I'm more a Chris Minns. I'm more a Malinowskis. That's what they're going to do. I don't think she can survive.
It's funny. I don't know if I'm imagining this, but whenever I see Jacinta Allen give a press conference, her demeanour, her manner is very much like Dan Andrews.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that, James?
Yeah.
I was just saying it might be a good time for the Liberals to dump their state leader as well. Yeah, I was being a little smart, but also quite serious at the same time.
Right, very good, very good. I just don't think she can survive, mate. I just don't.
We'll see. I agree with you, James, though. I think the Liberals aren't much chop either. They could do with a change there as well.